Imagine buying your dream home, only to be told you must spend thousands of dollars, your own money, and even your own sweat, building a fence you never asked for. And if you don't, the HOA threatens you with fines, liens, and even legal trouble. This is exactly what happened to one new homeowner, and the story of how far HOAs can go will leave you shaking your head. Have you ever had a nightmare HOA experience? Comment below. I want to hear your story. When I first moved into my new home, I thought I was stepping into a peaceful suburban life. The neighborhood looked perfect. Lawns were neatly trimmed, houses were painted beautifully, and everything seemed calm and inviting. I imagined quiet mornings, friendly neighbors waving hello, and a safe environment to raise a family. I never imagined that the HOA would turn my dream into a nightmare. It all started the day I received the welcome packet from the Homeowners Association. At first glance, it seemed normal. There were rules about trash cans, lawn care, and parking. I skimmed through, thinking, okay, these seem fair. But as I kept reading, my excitement faded. That's when I found the rule that made my heart sink. The HOA required every homeowner to build a fence around their property within 6 months of moving in. Not just any fence. It had to meet their exact specifications. 6 feet tall, wooden, specific color, style, and even spacing between boards. And the worst part, I had to cover all costs, myself, materials, tools, everything, and the HOA expected that I provide the labor to dot it first. I couldn't believe it. They weren't asking me to maintain my lawn or trim bushes. They were demanding I spend thousands of dollars and work on a massive construction project on my own property. I read the notice again, thinking I misunderstood. But no, it was clear. Non-compliance would lead to fines, penalties, and even legal action. Looking out at my empty backyard, I felt a wave of panic. I had no experience building fences. I barely knew where to start. And the cost. Even a modest fence would run several $1,000s for materials alone. Add tools, paint, and my labor, and it became overwhelming. Determined to understand, I spoke to some neighbors who had been living there longer. Their stories were worse than I imagined. One neighbor spent over $5,000 just on wood and hardware, working weekends for months to finish the project. Another hired contractors and ended up spending over $10,000, much more than planned. Some even told me the HOA inspected every fence with a ruler, checking colors, spacing, and height. Any small mistake meant fines or being forced to redo work. It was clear, this wasn't a friendly guideline. It was a strict mandate designed to drain your money, time, and energy, leaving homeowners with no real choice. Hiring contractors seemed like an option at first, but even that had drawbacks. Costs were extremely high, and the HOA inspections meant the work had to be perfect. One tiny mistake, a slightly crooked post, the wrong shade of stain could trigger a fine. The HOA held complete control over your backyard, dictating not only what the fence looked like, but also how it was built. Weeks turned into stressful planning sessions. I calculated materials, treated wood, cement for posts, nails, stain, and tools I didn't own. I researched tutorials online, trying to estimate how much labor would be required. The more I planned, the more overwhelming it became. Even working every weekend and evenings, it seemed impossible to finish on time. The HOA sent reminders, polite at first, then increasingly stern letters warning me of penalties. Each glance at my empty backyard became a reminder of the looming 6-month deadline. The stress started affecting me. What had been an exciting new chapter of life turned into a constant source of anxiety. I considered negotiating with the HOA, but experience from neighbors showed that the boards were inflexible. Rules applied equally to everyone, and exceptions were extremely rare. The system was structured so that homeowners had little choice but to comply, no matter how unreasonable the demands seemed. This was about more than a fence. It was a lesson in control. The HOA dictated how I spent my money, how I worked, and how I enjoyed my property. The fence represented authority over my life in a way I had never experienced before. Eventually, I had no choice but to comply. Started sourcing materials, borrowing tools from neighbors, and watching tutorials online. Each hammer, each post, and each painted board reminded me of the frustration and exhaustion that came with the mandate. But slowly, the fence began to take shape. I spent long afternoons measuring, cutting, and nailing boards, and evenings staining and painting the fence. Some days, the sun was scorching, and I could feel every drop of sweat as I worked. Other days, rain forced me to pause, stretching the deadline closer and closer. Every mistake felt like it could cost me hundreds of dollars, and the fear of HOA inspections added a constant layer of stress as I worked. I started noticing subtle dynamics in the neighborhood. Some homeowners proudly displayed their fences, having spent thousands to satisfy the HOA, while others tried to cut corners and ended up with fines or letters of warning. The HOA seemed to take almost perverse satisfaction in enforcing rules, monitoring every inch of every backyard. I felt trapped, like I was playing a game where losing meant paying for it literally. Neighbors watched my progress with a mix of sympathy and understanding. Some offered advice, some shared horror stories, and some simply nodded, silently acknowledging the burden of living under strict HOA rules. I wasn't alone. Millions of homeowners across the country face similar situations every day. Along the way, I realized how much pressure the HOA put on families. People who had just moved in, expecting excitement and joy, suddenly found themselves stressed, overworked, and financially strained. The 6-month deadline loomed over everyone like a shadow, leaving no room for mistakes, unexpected weather, or personal emergencies. It became clear that the HOA rules weren't about community aesthetics, they were about control. After months of hard work, the fence was finally complete. It looked neat and met every HOA specification. I felt relief, but not pride. This fence was a symbol of compliance, not personal achievement. I had spent my time, energy, and money to satisfy rules I never agreed with. Looking back, I understood why HOAs existed, to maintain neighborhood standards and protect property values. But when a rule forces homeowners to spend thousands of dollars, work long hours, and live under constant scrutiny, it crosses the line from organization into unreasonable control. Even after completing the fence, I noticed subtle ways the HOA continued to assert authority. They dictated where plants could be planted, the color of holiday decorations, and even how close I could park my car to the curb. Every day, I was reminded that living in a HOA neighborhood meant surrendering a portion of my freedom. For anyone considering moving into an HOA neighborhood, the lesson is simple: read the rules carefully, understand the deadlines, and know the obligations. What may appear to be a minor aesthetic requirement can quickly escalate into a major financial and labor-intensive burden. While some homeowners embrace the rules willingly, others find themselves trapped between compliance and frustration. Even now, as I look at my backyard fence, I feel a mix of relief and resentment. Relief that I avoided fines and legal trouble, but resentment that my dream home came with strings attached, forcing me to spend money and labor in ways I hadn't anticipated. The Fence is More Than Wood and Nails It is a story of compliance, control, and the hidden costs of HOA living. HOAs can seem small and harmless at first, but sometimes their rules feel like chains. Many follow them without complaint, but others, like me, learn the hard way that your dream home can come with unexpected costs and fences you never wanted to build. This story isn't just about a fence. It's a cautionary tale about hidden rules, strict deadlines, and the financial and emotional toll of living under an HOA. For anyone planning to buy a home in such a community, remember, beauty and order often come with strings attached. The HOA may claim to protect the neighborhood, but sometimes the cost of that protection falls squarely on the homeowners through labor, money, and endless stress. My fence now stands tall and perfect, exactly as the HOA demanded, but every time I glance at it, I remember the months of hard labor, the stress-filled evenings, and the thousands of dollars spent. It's a reminder that sometimes, living in the perfect neighborhood comes at a price you never expected. Even after the fence was done, the tension lingered. Neighbors would whisper about new rules, about the latest inspections, and the fear of fines never really left. I realized that while my backyard was now compliant, my peace of mind had been tested and stretched beyond what I thought I could handle.